Okay, so in this video, this will be the instructional one that we're doing this one in AutoCAD. So if you watch the instrumental where you're just kind of following along, this video will go along with that one, showing you step by step on how to do this using AutoCAD 3D. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so real quick, our normal stuff that we do, we turn the grid off. Let's go ahead and turn our ortho on, and then we'll take a look at the running O snaps that I have set up. All right, and I'm going to automatically jump to doing AutoCAD 3D. So I'll go ahead and hit the little sprocket here, click the fly up next to it, and go to 3D modeling. All right, you're going to give AutoCAD a little bit of a moment. It's going to change your ribbon and start setting your settings up for the 3D AutoCAD. And I'm giving it one more second here. Then let's go ahead and hit close on that. All right, so the way that this is going to work is that I'm going to create some shapes that I'm going to need to create the whole 3D part of this, right? And that's going to be the most important part, is trying to figure out the puzzle of how to keep this, or create this, I should say. Okay, so what I have here is I have this drawing, and then I need to figure out what shapes do I have. So the shapes that I have here is I'm going to start off by creating this shape here, right? And so we have to figure out, what do I have to create this shape, right? Do I have the length, and do I have the width, and do I have the height of it? So the length and the width is all given kind of all over the place here, right? So here's the length and the width, here's the height. Do I have enough to figure out this angle? Well, I can assume that the bottom line here is going across as 50 because it tells me here. And then I have an angle that's going across here, right? So how do I define that angle? Well, I don't have an angle there, but I do have a distance here. So once I go up and make this distance here, I can kind of figure out that angle just by using the rectangular components. So that's going to be one shape. The next shape that I'm going to need to create is going to be a pipe, right? I need to know how far a pipe is that sticks out from the bottom here to where this elbow starts to bend, right? So that's going to be the next shape that I'm going to do. That's going to be shape number 2. The third shape is going to be is I have another pipe sitting here at the top, right? So we're going to have a pipe sitting right along here at the top. So I have to figure out a way to create that pipe. And then finally, I have an elbow piece, right? So I'm going to create this elbow piece. So that's going to be the 4 shapes that I can look at and say, hey, if I can create those 4 shapes, I can create this part. I do have one more shape, and it actually cuts into my first part here. So if this is part number 1, I have to have something to cut into this part in order to create this one. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create another shape, and that's going to be my 5th shape, right? So all of these shapes are going to be created together, and that's what's going to form creating this. Now after I'm done creating this, we're going to jump over and start doing the 2D stuff. So the 2D stuff is going to fall just like any of my other 3D videos, and I'll go ahead and show you how to kind of set that up. And the good news is that if we do this correctly, this section is going to be created automatically for us. Another thing that I want to kind of highlight to you is that the reason I put all of these as a reference dimension is because you only need one dimension, right? If I have this 30, which is sitting here, that tells me the center line radius. So that's the important one. And then I have these 2 diameters, right? So what I should be able to do is figure out how far it is from this center to here. Likewise from this center to here, just based off of these numbers, right? So if the inside diameter is 20, right? So half of that would give me a radius of 10. So I'm going to go ahead and put a little R10 here. And with that R10, this allows me to just say, hey, I have 30 here. If I add 10 going this direction, that should give me a radius of 40, right? And if I subtract 10 going this way, that should be a radius of 10. A radius of 20. Therefore, you see those 2 numbers when I'm pointing to the inside here, I have a R40 and I have a R20. Likewise, if I do this number, so half of this one is going to be a R13. And I'm kind of sorry, I'm trying to draw this with a mouse here, but this is an R13. So once again, I apply that same principle. If I'm going to create from this center going out to here, and from this center going out to here, it's going to be a matter of adding 13 to this 30 and subtracting 13 to it, right? And if you do the math on that, you can see that that's going to be my R17 and my R43. So that's going to be everything that we need to break down this and create this 3D part really successfully, right? All right, so let's go ahead and transition back to AutoCAD and start working on these parts. Okay, so this should go really easy for us. We can create our first part using a polyline. So I'll go ahead and select here, and I'll click here, and I'm going to go this direction, a distance of 15. Now hopefully I have enough room. Let me zoom out. Let's go down this direction, 50. And let's go this direction, 50. And then I'll just type in C to close, right? So that's creating that box shape there. The next couple of shapes I'm going to create is going to be that pipe. So all I'm going to do is create a circle with a center diameter, right? So the circle command is located here, center diameter. Let's go ahead and click here, give one of them 26, go back to the circle center diameter, and then I'm going to place it at this center. You remember I always like to give a little preview of it, and then type in 20. All right, so that's what's going to represent each one of those two pipes that I need to create. And I also have one that has the elbow. So that's what I need to figure out as well. I'm just going to go ahead and copy this. And I'm going to copy this a couple of times, right? So this is going to represent one of the pipes. This is going to represent the other pipe. And then this one will do my elbow with. All right, to create that elbow, what I'm going to do is start off with a line. And I'm just going to use a regular line. I'm going to go down the radius of that, which is 30, right? So I'll click here, I'll go down 30. Then I'll go to the right, a distance of 30. And then I'll stop here. Now what I'm going to do is create an arc there, right? We can create an arc or we can create a circle and trim it. It's going to be totally up to you. I like using circles. They're easier to deal with. So I'll just use a circle center radius. The center will be at this endpoint. Then I'll click at this endpoint. And then we'll just go ahead and trim off the extra stuff. So trim, let's go ahead and trim that off. And now we can go ahead and delete these lines. All right, so now we have almost everything that we need to create all of our shapes. Let's go ahead and make one more little shape here. And I'm going to start off with a line that has a distance of 40. I'll draw a line from this midpoint. So let's go back to the line command, go from this midpoint, go this direction, a distance of 10. And then let's draw a line. And I'm just going to use L enter, come straight down a distance of 30. And then I'll move this one. So I'm just going to select this line here. I'll select this middle grip. And then I'll place it right on this endpoint. Last thing I have to do is go ahead and draw a couple of more lines here. So I'm just going to use L enter. And then I'll go ahead and match these two endpoints, right? Once again, L enter, and then do the same thing at these two endpoints. Let's go ahead and delete this center line here. And then we're going to highlight this. And then we have to join this together, right? If you want to look for the join command, it's underneath the modify and it's located here. I always just type in J enter. But there's the location for the join command, right? So we want to verify that everything is all ready to go. So this one is all joined. It's one piece. This is all joined in this one piece. And then these are just circles. So circles we don't have to join or do anything with. Okay. Now we're ready to create our three-dimensional part here. Just going to select this just to put it in an isometric view for us. And then what I'll start doing is let's do this one more rotation. Let's go ahead and select here. I always like to get my front here just so it'll represent how the isometric is going to look. Okay. The next thing let's go ahead and get out of the 2D wireframe and jump over to the 3D wireframe. By going to the 3D wireframe, that lets me use my gizmos. So I'll go ahead and select my rotate gizmo. Okay. And then the next thing I need to do is go ahead and rotate this thing going up, right? So let's go ahead and select it here. I'm going to select the red axis. And then I'm just going to move my cursor going straight up, do a left click here. And that's going to be what I need to create that shape. All right. Now we're ready to start extruding this. So let's go to extrude. Let's go ahead and select this shape. Go ahead and hit enter. And then I'm going to aim it this direction and give it its thickness. So I'll type in 50. And now we have that shape there, right? We can always verify these. If you want to take a look at this in shades of gray, I can do that. And then you can see that that is indeed a solid. We'll move these circles here in a little bit. Let's go ahead and cut that slot that's going through the back of here. So I'm just going to go to move. I'll go ahead and select this part here. Hit enter. I'll use this midpoint. And then I'm going to place it on this midpoint. Alright, next thing I need to do is I need to go ahead and bring this down through it. So what I'll go ahead and do is go back to the extrude command. Now sometimes it might be hard to select this line in between it. In this case I can use a blue window to go across. If I do a left click and just kind of highlight it, it will highlight just that part only. This is where wireframe really does help. Wireframe makes things so much easier to select, especially when you got lines like this. But anyway, once you have that selected, go ahead and hit enter. Just bring it all the way through it, so you don't have to type in that height of 50, just long as the number is greater than 50 or equal to it. But I'm just going to click somewhere down here. Let's go ahead and use the subtract function here. So subtract. Remember how subtract works is you're going to select the object you want to keep first. Go ahead and hit enter, and then select the objects that you want to remove from it, which is that object, and go ahead and hit enter. Alright, so now we have that slot cut in between our shape here. Let's go ahead and move these circles here. So I'll just use the regular move command. And I'll highlight all of this stuff. And I just want to move it somewhere along here. Okay, so what I need to do next is that I need to cut a hole in the middle of this. And the way this is going to work is I'm just going to select this circle here. And I'm going to copy it. And then I'm going to go from this center and place it along this endpoint. Okay, so now we have some numbers to define where exactly that is located. So if we refer back to our 3D drawing, it tells us exactly where those are going to be located at. And what we have to do is look for the numbers that tell us where those are, right? So we know that from this edge, and this is where my circle is currently existing, I need to know how far it is to go to here, which is the center. Well, it tells us that number located here. So that's going to be our 18.1. Now I need to tell it how far to go in from, and once again our circle is drawing at this point here. And let me go ahead and draw a circle in just so I can show you a little bit more. So our circle is actually located somewhere along here. So what I need to do is figure out two numbers, right? I need to know how far it goes in this direction, which is the number that I have highlighted for you. And then I need to know how far to go up this direction. That number happens to be 25, right? It's a reference number up here only because it's located down here as well, right? So we have our two numbers. Now we can specify where we can put our circle at, right? So let's go ahead and jump back over and go ahead and put the circle there. Okay, so we can decide to do this in two different steps, right? We can move it one direction and then come back and move it again if you want to move the gizmos, or we can move our UCS. We don't happen to move our UCS in too many occasions. This one, I'm just going to show it to you in both different ways of doing it, right? If we use the move gizmo, and this is going to be step number one, let's go ahead and select move gizmo. What I have to do with this one is just go ahead and select the circle, and then you're going to select the axis that you want to move it on. I want to go this direction, 25, and then I'll select the red axis here, and then I'll drag back this way and type in 18.1. So that's one way that you can locate that. I'm just going to go ahead and undo that really quick. And then the second option you have is if you want to actually move our UCS. Now moving the UCS is easy. We can select here. We're going to select the square, and then we're going to place it on this endpoint. Now we have to take note of which way is our positive X direction and which way is our positive Y direction. So when I go to move this object, go ahead and select it, right? And I'll select the center because that's where I want to move this thing from. And then I can type in the actual coordinates, right? So starting with the X direction, that's going to be a negative 18.1. Go ahead and put a comma in, and then I have to tell it the Y direction. And then the Y direction in this case will be 25. So once I type in those two numbers and hit enter, it should automatically be there. I can verify this if I look underneath. You can see that that circle is there. Or let's go ahead and switch to wireframe just so you can see what's kind of happening here. And you can see that that circle is indeed underneath it, right? Let's go ahead and take it back to shades of gray just so you can kind of see it happening. And that's the reason I'm switching back and forth between them, so you can actually see the cut going through it. Now we're going to choose extrude. We need to find that circle that's underneath. No worries. I'm just going to use a blue window. Highlight it. It should automatically have that selected, and it's verifying that it found one object here. Go ahead and hit enter, and then just move that circle going right through it, right? I just need to send it all the way through it. Let's go ahead and subtract. Select the object I want to keep first. Go ahead and hit enter, and then select the object that I want to subtract from it, in this case, which is there. Now I have this hole cut in between it. Alright, the next thing I need to do is go ahead and put my pipe in here, and then I need to verify how tall it is, right? So let's go ahead and do some calculations and figure that out. Okay, so figuring this out should be fairly simple. The first thing I need to know is how far is it from, basically this point here all the way down, right? Really simple and really easy to figure out, right? So if we have a radius of 30, that tells me no matter what happens from the center, which is located somewhere here, up to here has to be 30. Really simple, right? So we got the radius, and it is located at 30. And this is kind of taking us back to remember how we drew this arc here, right? So that distance is 30, this one is 30. And this is going to come into play here in a little bit also, this bottom 30 here. Okay, so we have this height, we have this. The real simple approach to this is that if I want to know how tall it is from here to here, I have the overall height, which is sitting at 90. If I take this 90 and minus the 30, that's going to give me the height that I'm going to need to create this pipe at. Simple math on that, so therefore, this pipe will be measured at a height of 60, right? Also, I need to figure out it's a pipe that is located here. It's a little stub that's located from here to here. And now I need to figure out how tall that is, right? Or how far that is. Once again, I can take the same logic that I have a 30 going from this distance all the way over. If I subtract the 50 by the 30, that should give me that this height or this length of this little stub piece should be 20, right? So now we have the distance that we need to create our two little stub pieces of pipe there. One is going to be measured at a distance of 60, and the other one is going to be measured at a distance of 20. Okay, so what we're going to do next is go ahead and extrude. And I'll go ahead and select both of these circles. Go ahead and hit enter. I want to give one of them a height of 60. And then I'll come back to the extrude command. And then I'll use this one. And this one is going to give me a height of 20. So those are both of those little stub pieces that I need to create. Okay, so now I need to subtract this out in order to make these actual pipes. So let's use the subtract command, and sometimes, once again, this might be easier to do in a wireframe, but hopefully I'll see what happens if I have it shaded. I want to select the object I want to keep when I do subtract. Go ahead and hit enter after that, and then I want to select the object I want to subtract, which is going to be this inside cylinder, right? And so once I select that, I'll go ahead and hit enter, and you'll see that it will remove it. Likewise on the other one. So let's go to subtract. We're going to select the cylinder that I want to keep, which is going to be this outside one. Go ahead and hit enter, and then we're going to select the inside cylinder here and go ahead and hit enter. So we have both of those pipes. Now I want to go ahead and place this pipe in its right location. So I'm just going to move this one. Go ahead and hit enter from this center, and I want to place it at this center here. One other way of, if you're kind of scared or making sure that you're picking the right center, if you do a shift and right click and go to center, that'll verify that it'll only pick centers. So I'll come down to that one and then I'll click. All right. So now that's in the right location. Let's go ahead and join these two together. So I'm going to go to union. And then I'll select that pipe and then this piece and hit enter. All right. So now this basically puts them together, if you can think of it as welding it together. All right. So this top piece of pipe I can't put in yet until I put in the elbow. The way I'm going to create that is go ahead and go back to my rotate gizmo. I'll select this arc that I have here. Let's go ahead and select the red axis and come straight up and do a left click. Go ahead and hit escape. And then I'll go ahead and zoom into this. I'm going to move these two circles to that endpoint. So I'm just going to highlight them. I'll pick this center grip and then I'll place it on this endpoint. All right. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and rotate this since I know that pipe is going to kind of face this way. So I'll go ahead and select this arc. I'll select the blue axis. And then I want to rotate it to when it comes towards me, like so. And let's see if I can get this to do it right. And sometimes it's kind of weird how you got to look at it. Oh, I selected the wrong axis. Sorry. Let's do that again. Select here. Select the blue axis. There we go. And I want to go that direction. All right. Let's move these two circles. So I'll place that endpoint onto that one. Okay. So now we're going to have this thing rotate up this direction, right? So the way we're going to do that is use the sweep command. I'm going to select both of these circles, enter, and then I'll select the path, which is going to be here. And now you see that it did create that elbow. We have to do some subtraction, so subtract, select the object I want to keep, enter, and then select the cylinders that I want to remove, which is the inside one, and go and hit enter. Okay. Let's go ahead and place this now in the right place or right location. So I'll go to move. Once again, I'll select here. Shift right click, choose center. Go ahead and place that center. Let me shift right click again because I actually picked the center. So I'm going to pick this center here. Sorry, I got to hit enter. I was still doing select objects. Go to the center. Click here. And then I want to place it at this center. So I'll shift and right click again, go to center, and then I'll just pick that center there. Alright, we can go ahead and union these together, or I can wait till I put the other piece of pipe, and I think in this case I will wait. So I'm just going to select this one. I'll select the red axis, go straight up, do a left click here, and then we're going to go to move. So I'll go to move, shift right click, choose this center, and then I'll shift and right click again and choose center, and place it along there. Okay, then I'll union all of this together. So I'll go to union, put a window around all of this, go ahead and hit enter, and all of it should be as one. And the way I can verify this is if I select any part on here, the whole thing should highlight. Let's go ahead and put the UCS back in the right location. Alright, and then we can kind of take a look around this shape just to make sure it is what we wanted. So you can see here I have that slot where it would sit in, and if I keep rotating this around, it does have that, and one more. Okay, and we also have this facing the right direction, right? So this is going to be my front view, this is going to be my right side view, and then you can see my top view. I just noticed I have this on shaded with edges, and that's just it's same as shades of gray, except you don't have all of the extra little lines in it. But the shaded with edges will be a lot faster for you as far as with your graphics and things of that nature. But either way, you can leave it on whichever one that you feel comfortable with. Okay, so now that I have this created, let's go ahead and start working on the drafting portion of this. The way that we're going to do that is we're going to jump to the layout tab, and we're just going to go ahead and make it or decide what type of title block we're going to put this on. Let's go ahead and use a B size. So I'll start off by creating a rectangle. Lower left corner will be at 0, 0. Go ahead and hit enter. And the other corner will be at 17, 11. Go ahead and create that. Use the offset command. Give it a thickness of 0.25. Let's go ahead and offset this to the inside. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is right click on layout 1, go to page setup manager. Once the dialog box appears, we will pick modify, DWG to PDF. Then I'll select the ANSI full bleed 17 by 11. I'm just going to use a window in this case. I'll go to window. And what I usually like to do is pick this inside rectangle. So I'll go from that endpoint down to this endpoint. Go ahead and center the plot. And then leave this set to 1 to 1. Go ahead and hit OK. And then close. Okay. Now with this created, let's go ahead and move this to the side, because I will go ahead and do something with this, and I wanted to show you a difference between if I use something with a viewport versus what I have when I bring it in with a base. So if I go to base from model space, It's going to look in the model space and see if I have any 3D objects. The good news is that it automatically selects one of those primary views for me, and it's still kind of cooking here. Let's see. And there it is. So it gives me my front view, but I want to create an isometric view, right? And I think it's either northwest or northeast. Okay, it's going to be the northeast. And here is my view of it. Let's go ahead and play around with how big or how small we want this thing, right? So remember that if I go up in this, it'll make it smaller. If I come down, it'll make it bigger. So I just have this number, and remember this number. This is 1 inch is equal to a foot. Let's go ahead and select it here and place it here. Everything is fine with it. I'll just go ahead and hit enter, and then hit enter one more time, and it should go ahead and create that, right? Now, depending on how you want this to look, I'll double click back on this view, and then I can change it to shaded with visible lines, and just go ahead and hit enter, right? So that one is fine. With the one in the viewport here, I can go ahead and kind of play with this and manipulate it how I want to. Just gonna go ahead and make my viewport a little bit bigger. All right, I'm gonna double click on the inside of this just to activate the viewport, right? And then I want to zoom the extents. So I'm just gonna click on this button here. And then we can, once again, what I was saying is that if we remember what scale we is and what we had, and I want to match this one, I can come down here where this number is, and everybody's decimal will be a little differently. I'll select here, and if I select the exact same one that I choose on that one, both of these sizes will match. So I can select here. All right, and let's go ahead and pan this up just a hair. Okay, so once I have this viewport saved or at the right view, a common practice to do is just to go ahead and lock it. And that way I won't mess up this viewport at all. Now, the benefit of using a viewport versus using the one that comes from the base view is that I can actually change the appearance of how it looks, right? So if you want something to maybe look like a sketch, you have that option. So I can make this sketchy, and it will indeed print it out this way. I can maybe have it looking, you know, if I wanted the shades of gray or shaded with edges, it will print it out this way. So it's going to be exactly what you want or how you want this to print out. I'm going to go ahead and leave this as sketchy just so you can see the difference between the two. I'll go ahead and double click outside of that viewport to get off of it. Now we want this viewport to go away. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create a couple of layers. Once I select here, it should be some automatic layers created for us, right? So these are going to be some of the just general layers that are created for us. We can use these layers if you want, or you can, you know, basically select or create your own layers. So for right now, I'm just going to use these that we have. And this is called MD. Well, yes, I can use these. All right, so the hidden ones, let's go ahead and make those red. So I'm just going to select right here on the color palette. And I'm going to make both of my hidden layers here red. And with the visible ones, we'll go ahead and leave those alone. We're going to have to go ahead and create a couple of more layers. So I'm just going to select this icon here. I'll go ahead and type in CEN. Hit enter afterwards. That one is created. I'll go ahead and select the next one. And I'm going to create this one as a VP layer. And so we have a hidden, a center, and we can make a phantom one as well. Let's go ahead and make one more and call it PHA. Now, if you want your dimensions and things to be on a different layer, we can go ahead and do that as well, but I'm just going to leave them here. This should be more than enough layers and just a good practice of how to create layers. So with the phantom one, I'll go ahead and select this color here. Let's go ahead and make that a blue. And hit OK. The VP one, let's go ahead and make this, let's say a magenta. Now with the VP layer, I don't want this one to print out. So anytime you have viewports, you typically don't want to see them on your drawing. So I'll select this button here. And that just means that it will not print. Later on, I'm going to go ahead and just change it off totally. And I can do that from here. But I'll do that when I have it out there. And then on the center one, let's go ahead and make that a cyan color. Okay. So I can also control with this phantom one how thick I want the line to be. So I'm just going to select this line weight here. And then I'll tell it that, let's go ahead and make that maybe a 0.40. And then we'll change the line type of it. And this one I'll have to load. I'll go down to Phantom 2, hit OK, and then select Phantom 2 and hit OK. That one should change. VP, we can leave it as continuous, so I'll go ahead and change that one on continuous. And then with the center one, let's go ahead and hit that one where it says hidden 2, go to load, looking for center 2, hit OK, and then select center 2. Okay, so this should be all the viewports that I need to create. Let's go ahead and close this. I'm going to select this viewport, and then I'll go ahead and put it on the viewport layer, right? So you see that it did change magenta, and one other step here is that I'll go ahead and turn it off, and then you won't see it. All right, so now you got a good comparison of how you want these to look. So this is your sketchy one, and then this is the one that's done from AutoCAD by using the base command. Let's go ahead and go to another sheet here. So I'll go to layout 2. I can go ahead and bring in that rectangle and do all that stuff again. Let's go ahead and click back on layout 1, or what we can do is just copy this one. So you got two different options here. If you like doing this again, you can do this all over again. In this case, what I'm going to do is go ahead and highlight layout 1, do a right click on it, and then I'll choose the move copy. All right, dialog box should appear, and then I have to tell it where I want it to go. So I want this one to go right before layout 2, and I'm going to tell it to go ahead and create a copy of it and hit OK. So what I'm expecting should happen is I have layout 1, then I have layout 1 with a number 2 behind it. So these two are exactly the same. Let's go ahead and rename this to sheet 1. So I'm just going to call it sheet 1. And then I'll click on layout 2, do a right click on that, go to rename, and this is going to be sheet 2. Okay, so now both of those are appearing. So in this one is layout 1. Let's go to sheet 2. I only have this one. Let's go ahead and turn this viewport back on. And then with this one, I'll go ahead and delete it. Okay, so I don't have that viewport anymore. Let's go ahead and make sure we go back and turn this off, because on the first sheet, it still will be there. All right, now we're ready to kind of basically create the drawing of this. We're going to go to base, model space, and it should bring in my front view, which is the one I want. So I'll do a left click here, hit enter. I'll move my cursor up here, do a left click here, do a left click here, and then do a left click here, right? So once I have all of those, do a right click with your mouse, go ahead and hit enter, or you could hit enter on your keyboard. Now you see that we do have all of our views created. Another step here is that I'm going to change the way that this one appears, right? So I'll select it here, go to edit view, and then we want this one usually to be on the shaded with edges. Now, if you want to see, there are some tangential lines and things of that nature on here. If you want to see those, you can select this view, go to view edit, and then underneath the edge visibility, you can say, hey, go ahead and put those tangent edges on there, and then you can see these lines that will appear, right? So this is only applying to this view. If I hit OK on this one, you can see where that bend actually happens. So I can do the exact same thing on these, and then you can see if you want to see where that separation between those pipes that we created. All right, I'll go ahead and do that one on this one, just since we're kind of creating those. All right, so that's perfect for us, right? Next, we can go ahead and put our section view located here. Remember to create a section view, and here we have to jump to layout, and then we'll have section. I have to select the view first. So right now it's saying select the parent view. So I'm going to select this view. And then it says, all right, now I need to go ahead and create that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to touch this center, and I'm just going to track off of it until I get above it at a comfortable distance. Do one left click, come straight down. Do another left click when I have the distance that I want. Go ahead and hit enter after that, and then move your cursor to the left of your view, and it should create that section for us. So I'll go ahead and do a left click here, and then hit enter. Give it a second and it should cook, and there it is, right? So we do have our section AA. Let's go ahead and move this up. So I'm going to select this view. I'm going to select that center there, and then I can bring this one up, and all of them should move up. Perfect. Let's go ahead and move this one up a little bit out of the way as well. And I'm sorry, I got my ortho on, so there we go. All right, so that looks good to me. Let's go ahead and move this one over a hair as well. All right, so now we have all of our views. Now, if I want to change the way that this looks, these are going to be controlled by these two styles here. So I'll go ahead and select this top one here, and it's going to bring me open to this dialog box. If I hit the word modify, and then I'm going to tell it on the cutting plane to use the line type is by layer. Likewise at this one, I'll tell it by layer, right? So basically what I'm telling this to do is that whenever I put this on the correct layer, go ahead and use that layer as opposed to anything else. All right, so I'll go ahead and hit OK and then hit close. And what I'm expecting to happen is that when I select this view here, and I'll go back to the Home tab, and I'll go ahead and put this on this phantom layer, it should turn blue, which it does. Okay, so that's one way you can control your phantom lines and things of that nature. Let's go ahead and place our center marks and center lines in between here. So I'll use the center layer command first. And then I want to go ahead and put that on the send layer, right? So CEN. What that's going to allow me to do is that if I come to the annotate tab here and I go to center marks, I'll go ahead and select my circle here, my circle here. And that's going to be all the center marks that I'm going to need to create, right? Let's go ahead and escape out of that, and let's go ahead and clean this up a little bit. So with this top one, I'm just going to click on the square, bring it to there, square, bring it to here. And then I'll open my properties window by doing a right click and go to properties, and that should highlight it over here. And what I'm going to do is change my extension on my top and bottom to 0. So I'm just going to go to 0 there and 0 here. Okay. So all I'm going is getting a plus there, right? I don't want any overlapping lines. That's just one of the things that I like to do. All right, let's go ahead and place our center lines in here. So I'm just going to select these two opposite corners. Go ahead and hit enter just to kind of repeat that and speed this up a little bit. Enter here. And then one more enter here. Okay. As far as this one at the top, what I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and select this center mark here. I'll click on this square and place it right at this midpoint of perpendicular. And then I'll have that. That kind of looks really well for what we need. Now, here's one of the problems is that we cannot create an arc here using either one of these, right? If I try to use this center line command, it won't even let me select these arcs. So I have to physically draw a circle there. All right, let's go back to the Home tab and create a circle with a radius. So circle, center, radius, go to this center, then do a shift right click and choose tangent, and then select that line there, right? And then we can trim this. So I'll do a trim, and then I'll choose match properties, right? The way we go with match properties is just MA, enter, select the object I wanted to copy, which is going to be that center line there, and then I'll select this arc. Do the exact same thing that I did on this other side. So once again, I use a circle, so just C, enter. I'll find the center, which is located here, and then I'll shift right click and choose tangent, and go ahead and click here. Use the trim command, so I'll type in TR, enter, go ahead and click here, escape, and then match properties with MA, enter. I'll go ahead and select here, and then this is the one I wanted to copy to look like. Now the only problem that I'm going to have is that if I try to dimension this arc, it will not allow me to dimension this and still keep the same properties of that. So you'll see that when I get to doing dimensions and things of that nature, right? Okay, so we have all of our center marks on. We didn't have to worry about doing hidden lines or anything of that nature. We have everything on here. I think we are at that point of where we can start dimensioning. So I'll go to the annotate tab here. And then the first thing I'm going to do is tell that I want it to use the dimension layer. Now, I know that we didn't create a dimension layer because we're going to leave it at the 0 layer. And if I go to the layer properties, I can see that. So I can go to LA and hit enter. That'll bring up the layer properties. We don't have one that's called dimension, but we can create one now. So I can select this little icon here, type in DIM, and then give it a color just to make sure that we do have something differently. And let's make it on a, let's say red layer. Okay. So my dimensions on a red layer, and I'm just verifying that it is continuous. All right, let's go ahead and close this. And what this is going to allow me to do is go ahead and put my dimensions on the layer that I want it on, right? So I can select this drop down and say, hey, all of my dimensions put on that layer. Let's go ahead and open up the dimension style. I'm just going to select that arrow here. I'll modify this. And once I get into my box, you know I like to work from the right to the left. So I'll go to my primary units. I'm just going to suppress the trailing zeros, right? So if it has any trailing zeros, those will go away. Underneath the fit, go ahead and leave this number set to 1. That is fine. Underneath the text, let's make this a little bit smaller. And the only reason I keep changing this number to 0.125 is because typically here in the US, what we tend to do is have our dimension sizes or most of our text set to 1/8 of an inch. So therefore, that's why I do that. And then underneath the symbols and arrows, we're going to tell this none. There's no need to do that. We already took care of that. So go ahead and hit OK and then close. All right. So starting here, I'll go ahead and put these radius dimensions on just to verify and make sure that they did do it correctly. So let's go to radius dimension. I should click here and it'll place that one. I'm just going to hit the enter button to save me time from going back up there. So I'll click here, enter. I'll go to this one. That one is located here, and one more enter, and then I'll do this one on the outside. Okay, so that just verifies that all of those numbers in what our math should agree with. Let's go ahead and put one more dimension on this one. So let's go to a linear dimension. I'll go from this endpoint here at the bottom and place it at this top endpoint here. Now all of these are reference dimensions, and I'll show you how to make those references all at once. So I'm not going to worry about that now. Let's go ahead and finish putting all the rest of these dimensions on. So I have a linear dimension. Remember that this is one continuous line, so I'll just hit enter, and that's going to allow me to go ahead and select here, click here. I'll hit the enter button on my keyboard, and once again it's a continuous line. I'll hit enter again. I'll select here and here. Now the only thing I don't like about it is that it does matter where you click in order to put this 15. So sometimes if you want more control over this, and I'm going to go ahead and delete that one. If you use the linear dimension, remember the last point that you click at is where it's going to throw it out to. So if I go from this endpoint to this endpoint, it's going to throw it out to the left. Alright, let's go ahead and put some diameter dimensions on here. So I'll go ahead and use the diameter one. I'll place them along here. Hit the enter button. And I'll just go ahead and knock out both of those diameter dimensions. Let's go ahead and put a couple of dimensions over here. So I'll go ahead and use the linear dimension from this endpoint here up to that endpoint here. So this is one of those weird things. It will dimension to this endpoint here, right? But this circle here, when I go to put a radius dimension on it, you will see what happens. So if I go to dim linear and I go to radius, when I go to click this circle here, it's going to give me the true radius of it, right? So this one I have to overwrite. What I mean by that is that I'm going to have to double click this one. So if I double click here, and I'm just going to give it a second, and then I'm just going to type in R 30. Let's back up one, capitalize R30, and then delete that and close it. Right? Now that's the one kind of downfall here in this program. Alright, here's my second one here, is that when I go to dimension, this linear dimension, I'll go from this endpoint. Make sure that you select the right endpoint here. I do have this little endpoint that I left over intentionally so I can get this dimension. Okay, and it would be likewise if I was trying to put a dimension maybe from here to here. I'll leave those little extension pieces there just so I can dimension to it. Alright, let's go ahead and put one more here. So I'm just going to move this one down, select this circle here, grab that square and place it at that midpoint. Let's do a linear dimension from this endpoint to this one. Okay. Let's go ahead and take a look at the top here. And then we're going to add some dimensions here. So linear dimension, let's go ahead and knock out our first one here. So from here to here has a distance of 50. I'll go ahead and hit enter on my keyboard. Next one I'll do is from here to here. This has a dimension of 40. Go ahead and hit enter. And then from here to here has a dimension of 30. Right? Go ahead and hit enter. I want to swing that. If it does come out, I want that 10 to be onto the left side here. So I'll go ahead and hit enter. Go from that endpoint to this one. Come straight down. Luckily it fits between there. Let's give myself a little bit more room. Go ahead and hit the enter button. I want to go from this endpoint here, just so I make sure that it goes down to that endpoint. I'll select here, and I'm going to wind up moving that. Go ahead and hit enter one more time, and I want to go from this endpoint to here. And then I'll place it at that endpoint, right? So in here, let's go ahead and select this 10, and then we're going to select the center grip here. We're going to move that down, click it here, and then I'll select this endpoint here and place it onto that endpoint. Okay. Put a few more dimensions on this. Let's go ahead and go back to linear. From this endpoint to this one. And then I can put this dimension here. So I want that 18.1 to be on the outside here. So when I go to the dimension, so enter, I want to go from this endpoint. Remember, it's going to be the last endpoint that you pick at is going to be that side. So I'll click here. And I'll place it here. One more dimension, just go ahead and hit enter. Place that dimension from here to here, and then place it. Alright, the easiest way of fixing all of these reference dimensions is by selecting them. So I'm going to select that one first, and then I'll select all of these dimensions. And it looks like I actually got the view. Let me escape out of that. I want to select each one of these dimensions here, so I'm going to select all of these radial dimensions. See, I have this one, and then one more on here. I'll go over to the properties, scroll down till I find where it says primary units. I'm sorry, I need to go to text. So I'll go to where it says text. I have text overwrite, and what I'll do here is I'll do an open parentheses, less than, greater than, and then a closed parentheses, right? So when I hit that enter on that, you should see that all of these should automatically have the reference around them. And it looks like I did forget one here. Let's go ahead and select that one. That one's going to be the only one different. Let's go and find text override, select here, open parentheses, less than, greater than, close parentheses. Right? The less than, greater than just means that use the actual dimension and then put those numbers around it. Alright, so let's go ahead and escape out of that. Let's go ahead and zoom the extents. And it looks like we have this one completed. One last step I will do is I will just go ahead and move this up just so it is not sticking down below our title block there, right? Alright, so zoom the extents, take a look at it. We can go back to sheet 1. Remember that sheet 1 kind of gave us this view here. So you have different options on depending on how you want this to look. Now, before they came with some of this fancy stuff with this base here, there are ways that we can do it based off of these views, right? And what I'll try to remember is to show you that in another video. It's a lot more complex than what we have here, but it can be done. And I'll show you that on a much simpler part as opposed to this one. And because this video is getting way too long as it is right now. So I'll make a separate video and show you how to do that if you don't have the base option here. And just like we did in the old days before this came out, right? Alright, so thank you guys for watching. Thank you for everybody that's subscribing and that's enjoying this kind of content. I really do appreciate you watching this. If you know anybody that needs help in this, or you like this content, or possibly may like this content, please go ahead and send them my way. I'll look forward to reading your comments, and if there's something that you want to see me do, please feel free to leave me a comment as well. Alright, so thank you for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it.